He's a very good person on AR, VR, WT, and any of these tech trends. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Anuraj.
Sorry, I'll make sure I stay. There's the entry for you. Right. Am I echoing there? I'll probably just stay away from. Right. Okay. I better get started because I've got lots of slides. I think you already have copies of my slides, so I'm going to go really fast at times. So I'll start right away. I think we're all aware that the convergence happening, hyper-convergence happening across so many different domains, the power of consumers, devices, technology, and the internet driving this convergence in the market. And it's really about new business opportunities that we are seeing coming about very rapidly in that space. So not talking about kind of mega trends, this hyper-connected world, we're living in a world of totally hyper-empowered consumers or customers. In Time magazine in 2006, labeled you, or the consumer, which has really become a prosumer, I would say, in many ways, as the person of the year. So communication is changing very rapidly. We're seeing as we're evolving from what things were and what things are now. Looking back at in a village in India, for example, how communication used to happen in a format, and social networking now. There are so many interesting parallels and synergies which one can derive. So looking at some mega trends, which are likely truths, which are we'd labeled as 2020, but I think a lot of them are already happened as we're speaking. And some of the selected megatrends are talking about networking, personalization, platformization. I think we've seen the Ubers and the Airbnbs of the world taking on just as little startups and becoming just mega giants in that regard. And that's where startups are thinking in that regard. I mentor so many different startups globally, and I'm just seeing that the ambition, the vision has to be big. It's really about building the right platforms and the right sort of experience around it, which I'll talk to a little bit more later. So we talk about the second sort of aspect, which is kind of telecom, media, and IT all coming together, consolidation happening in the whole space, industry collaboration. And I think that's where it's very, very critical to look at how can you really bring together different ecosystems. Click. So age of connected intelligence. I think Ericsson talks about, I used to head innovation for Ericsson in India, and we had a number there called 50 billion devices by the year 2020. Amdocs talks about 7 trillion devices. So the numbers are up for grabs, but I think it's really about the Internet of Things and this whole pervasive connected world that we're talking about. Anything that will be connected, can be connected, will be connected. And I'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. Come on. So it's not just about creating ecosystems, it's about curating the right ecosystem. And I think that's where what we're noticing in education, in this whole space, the transformation is happening so rapidly with old school becoming, somewhere where we're seeing MOOCs. And, there are over 38,000 MOOCs right now around the, which I'm sure many of you are already doing it as academicians, being able to promote different courses online and looking at the flipped classroom approach. It's not about on the stage anymore. It's a guide on the side. That's what the lecturer or the teacher has transformed into in many regards. But of course, there's an interesting transition there. And I think we similarly noticed that similar parallel with the healthcare space. So I just thought I'll throw that slide because that's an area which I'm working a lot deeper in also. And Eric Topol, who's been one of the pioneers, he wrote a book called The Patient Will See You Now. And I think that's where the medical profession is also having a wake-up call right now, and really seeing that disruption in this new paradigms which are coming about, where the smartphone or different sensors, and an area which I'm currently working on in wearable technology, where we're seeing just healthcare being democratized very dramatically. So I think you would have seen this Gartner's hype cycle earlier. We've seen many different interesting transitions. We're seeing the crossing of the chasm across many different spaces, from early adopters to early majority for many different technologies. And I think where AR, VR, and some of the new natural user interface aspects which are influencing education and learning of the future, are certainly, crossing that chasm as we talk about. And the mobile device, been in this industry for a long time now, and I think we've all been through interesting transitions of seeing, and I think historically when you look at it, the mobile device is such a convergent phenomena. It's incorporated media from printing from recording, cinema, radio, the internet, and of course, the eighth mass media, which my colleague Tommy Ahonen likes to dub augmented reality as really that next big phenomena as AR. And it really comes down to experience at the end of the day, which really becomes everything, which is a function of hardware, software, services, and content. And I think that's where we see with the big four companies just represented there, how they've really grown that ecosystem of bringing that ultimate or that penultimate user experience to that delightful level for the end user. So I'll give you a little quick story. I was involved with a project when I was with Optus here 20 years ago, involved with setting them up actually. One of the projects which I was a stakeholder on was called the Nortel Orbitor. And this was actually 10 years before the iPhone even came. And Apple actually took on the IP from Nortel on the Orbitor, which was actually many different similar aspirations to what the iPhone became in 2007, June when it was launched. And a lot of ideas are parked quite early on. And when you look at it, it's just waiting for the right ecosystem and the right timing to come about to sort of make them alive. And that's pretty much what Apple did, when they launched the iPhone. It was all about the right timing and the package, the experience. And the brand equity success, of course, of the two Steves. And a term I'd coined called simplexity, which is the need for simplicity in an increasingly complex world or architecture or ecosystem. And what did the iPhone really do? It liberated the user with its capacitive touchscreen and the apps, which were really one of the biggest players in or aspects of innovation that the smartphone enabled the user to personalize. And Apple, again, they, of course, haven't been perfect. They did an interesting tinkering on with a product called the Apple Newton message pad. How many of you have used that? Anybody? The MP 110, 120, if you remember that. I used to co-chair the Apple Newton users group here, well, 20 years ago now. And, but the message pad was a great PDA at its time, at the time of US Robotics and the others which were in the market, if you remember them. But Apple killed that product. 17 years later, it was reborn as the iPad. And that really changed the rules. It created a whole new category. And again, I think we all watch this space. The smartwatch space has been around for a long time. I had my team from Siemens. We developed the world's first watch phone, which we showed with a 10-minute battery life in the Hanover Fair in 2003 at CeBIT. But again, it was very big and clunky, but it was a prototype, very early prototype. So, but it took a company like Apple to come and really bring about, and as we heard, 25 million smartwatches sold this year. The number is growing exponentially. And I'm currently working on a project. In fact, I just came back from the Silicon Valley on a children's smartwatch design, where we're looking at disrupting that space. And so it's really apps and accessories, out there to rule in a form. We're talking about this whole space of sensors, which are going to bring about new paradigms. And it's a combination of the hardware and software in this place becoming a very interesting interplay of how we will interact with new devices in the future. So I'll give you one example of also a project I was involved with, which was called the Akash tablet. We designed that for the Indian market about 6 years ago now. And this was the world's cheapest tablet for $35 for education. And there was an order of 100 million devices in the first go already. It went through a few iterations, a lot of failures, but it was really about bringing that whole ecosystem and looking at the right content, segmenting it correctly for the end users, for the right schools and all that. So again, it's been through a few iterations. I, in fact, have my device. I think I left it in my bag. I was going to bring it here, but I can show you one of the first prototypes of the Akash, which came out. It's actually at version 4 right now. And very low-cost device. And of course, there are so many other devices and tablets in the market which reach that price, that price factor. So it was launched by the President of India, and affordable devices or smart devices, I think we've seen a big revolution in that space. In India earlier this year, ringing bells, one company talked about a 251 rupee phone, smartphone, Android phone. So you can talk about, and that's, we're talking about, $7 Aussie is just unbelievable in terms of price points. So another project I was involved with, which is very relevant to the learning space and education, was a little startup from Chennai, from South India, called Novatium. And it's a company we invested in and actually almost acquired, actually, as Ericsson. And this company did cloud grid and utility computing. So it was really looking at complex platforms. When you talk about how complex a computer is to buy in terms of hardware, software, and operating systems and so forth. And really trying to bring a very simple approach to that. Imagine a computer, if it switches on in 5 seconds, multiple operating systems are supported. It is virus-free, it's future-proof. It's fully controlled by remotely, and that's and becomes maintenance-free. And that's pretty much the whole platform that was launched by Novatium several years ago. And we sort of took that to many markets and used it in many different educational institutes. It's a family computer, a computer that switches on just like a DVD player in home, connects to your television or any screen, and becomes a very low-cost, affordable option also. So, and pretty much that's where various other companies have also shifted in that direction when you look at converting a device into an appliance, which has really been a paradigm shift in computing. And I think that's where we're seeing, obviously, with AI and new other trends out there, which are bringing about this whole democratization of computing as a whole. So it's a flexible and inclusive framework. There's some more details on the Novatium architecture. I'll just go through it very quickly. It's a managed desktop. You can do hyper-localized advertising and contextual delivery of content. And so the world is really changing very fast. It's not the big beating the small anymore. It's the fast beating the slow. And I think we see that that move from infotainment, mobile VAS, or value-added services, to utility value-added services, where M-education, M-health, M-agriculture, and so forth are really the talk of the town in terms of something tangible and meaningful delivery of content through devices. Another project I've been involved with on an advisory basis is this Health Phone project, which has been a huge content library of video for emerging markets, for which UNICEF has also launched, called with the Mother and Child Foundation. So looking at how women from emerging markets can be quickly brought up to speed with who are sort of illiterate to that level, be explained about various different scenarios of raising children and about health information. And one of my passionate projects, actually, which I've been involved with since its inception, is this for children called Touchable Earth. And it's really connecting kids, making them global citizens. It's almost like pen pals we had in the old days, digitizing that and bringing social media to a form which is very relevant for children. And it's kind of been, we worked closely with UNICEF on this, and also with the ION Foundation, the largest school children group. And I'll show you a little video of that, actually. So if you could just play that video, please. Might have to play it manually, I think. Not playing? Can you try manually? Just. Yeah, there we go.
Touchable Earth is the first digital world book for kids, where kids are the teachers. That means when Neo and Rathibile in Lesotho, Africa, want to learn about girls' clothes in Nepal, they can learn from a child their own age who actually lives there.
Namaste, my name is Divya Khatka. I am 11 years old. All the months wear this type of dress in Nepal, and I am going to explain this dress. This is Joli, this is Dhoti, this is Patuki, this is Mala, this is Sirbandi, these are Dungarees, this is Tika. Thank you. Bye.
Key facts about each place are covered, but more importantly, so are aspects of a kid's life, such as their family, their school day, the games that they play, and their culture. The similarities foster curiosity, as does the opportunity to share and learn with somebody their own age.
We see them and they see us.
Yes, and all over the world.
Our goal is to have every place in the world included in Touchable Earth. We have partnered with the largest schools network in the world, iEarn.org, to help create the content. We aim to be the leading donor of tablets for education. We have successfully donated tablets and wireless internet to schools in South Africa, Romania, Romania, Iraqi Kurdistan, India, Nepal, and Yemen. Supporting Touchable Earth helps us create new chapters, foster peer learning, and increase access to education around the world.
Thank you, Touchbars. Bye.
In fact, as we're speaking, I was speaking with Tudor Clee, who's the founder of this, and he's traveling to Africa right now and filming more kids and more countries he's covering, bringing a lot more content online. So I encourage you to have a look. There was a new version just launched last week on Touchable Earth, the V3. So I can even show it to you on the tablet there later if you want to have a deeper probe. Right, so the next slide is actually covering an aspect of a couple of gentlemen who I've worked closely with, timeless life skills and learnings in the second half of the 21st, or second part of the 21st century. And really looking at, Atul Pant, who's the one on the left there, and Professor M.M. Pant. And Atul's written a couple of books, Fire Up the Learner Within. I would really recommend these two books, actually. And, only the curious shall survive or shall thrive. We did a workshop actually with the University of Allahabad, which is one of the oldest universities in the world, on future of digital education and new paradigms in learning. And I'll show you some of the things which I've talked about there a bit later. And it was really interesting to see how the two worlds are really colliding so rapidly, how education is transforming so rapidly. And I think I don't need to preach in front of you people. You certainly are very much ahead of the game there. I'll quickly move on to aspects of, we're seeing internet and ICT obviously influencing so many different walks of life. The connected world journey has really just begun. The Internet of Things, or the intelligence of things, as Flex is calling it even, or the industrial Internet of Things, as GE calls it, and there are many other words. Cisco is calling it Internet of Everything. It's really, there are many terminologies and terms and buzzwords, but it's a phenomena which is taking us on big time. And I think smart cities to smart homes, it's really where we're talking about the future classroom of the world. But to give you one little disruptive example, something as at Ericsson that we showcased in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress was a tweeting tree, smart plants, tweeting cows, and sensors in anything and everything. So you can just imagine the data that's being collected out there is just huge. Another example of one of the companies, in fact, I'm mentoring here locally in Sydney, which is disrupting flight training, a company called SynFlight. And what we have there is a flight simulator, which is 1/10 the cost of a normal flight simulator. And it's professional grade. It covers about 6-7 different aircraft. And there's a huge shortage of pilots out there. So I think it's another interesting aspect where we're incorporating, in fact, VR and AR, in fact, mixed reality elements also on the future roadmap, including EEG, which I'll be talking about in a couple of minutes. So from the network to the networked world, just a couple of concept devices which are very much close to reality, which I've been involved with working in. A dual touchscreen of sorts, and a favorite one, which was actually a pen phone we showcased in Hanover at CeBIT, was like a spider which you can project the display and project a keyboard, and that's a full-blown computer right with you. Not too far from reality, a lot of these things. And e-learning examples of having dual devices, being able to have multiples. I mean, this is all very possible now, which we can do with tablets and have interactive scenarios, multi-touch screen tables. And the company, we launched that in India with the largest coffee chain in India called Cafe Coffee Day, a multi-touch table, which I had a video on, but due to shortage of time, I won't show that. One of the visions we've had, or we've been looking at, is actually the ebook of the future. And I think a lot of you obviously must have tried different ebook solutions out there, right from the Kindle and so forth. But what would the ebook of the future look like? I think it has to feel, touch, smell like a real book. And I think that's when we've really achieved that experience. And just a week before last, I was with one of the companies developing flexible displays and playing with some of the technology in California. And we looked at some really interesting examples of how this could be becoming reality in the not too distant future. So coming to wearables, and I mentioned there earlier that I was looking at the children's wearable space, looking at learning and education, security and safety, and healthcare and wellness aspects, with a bit of fintech in there. So we're really trying to bring in multiple aspects, but trying to see what are the touch points for children learning through RIS1 variables, I1 variables, and different aspects that we can influence and actually enhance learning. So it's a very, very vast landscape on variables. I won't go deeper into that right now. We're seeing so much data being generated. Up until 2003, we had 2.5 exabytes of data being generated every day. Currently, we're already generating more than 3 exabytes, I believe. So there's just immense amount of data. If you look at how much is happening in 60 seconds, the number of Facebook logins, 701,000, 150 emails being sent in 60 seconds, is just unbelievable amount of data we are generating. So one of the platforms which which has been looking at the space of big data analytics is a company called Declara. And I had the fortune to meeting their founder, Ramona, just a couple of weeks ago in California again, and seeing how they are influencing this whole space of deep insights and catalyzing lifelong learning from there. And if you look at what they've done, is pretty much built around different dimensions, 5 dimensions of behavior, which is social, intent, interest, reputation, and knowledge. And then basing that to build this cognitive graph to really bring about a fast-track action to insights. And that's one of the pages that I've got a few collections which I curate on the Declara thing. I encourage you to have a look at the Declara website. They've been ranked even by President Obama as one of the most innovative startups, and Ramona has been right at the top of the Silicon Valley startups scene. So the next point I wanted to move into is really this aspect of media and how it's really evolved from a lean back couch potato mode of media 1.0 to media 2.0, which is a more immersive computer mode, as we call it, to really what we are into at the space we are into now, which is the real immersive media 3.0, which is when we look at the Kinects and the Project Natals from Microsoft, and of course Xbox Kinect, and which have evolved into so many new spaces in AR and VR. It's the transformation from the GUI, as I call it, to the NUI, which is the natural user interface. It's about humanizing technology and connecting the physical and virtual worlds. There's a game there actually on this phone here, the SX1, which was a phone we launched from Siemens, a game called Mozzies, which was Pokemon 15 years ago, if you can imagine. It was the first game we launched on AR, out there. And I think AR has really made a long tread now since that journey. And we've seen really what we heard, I think, earlier also. I won't go spend too much time on that. We're seeing the realities, from virtual, then augmented. It's the mixed reality. It's the mediated reality is where I think the traction is. And, when we talk about, obviously, mass behavior change, it's really about involve me and I learn with AR and VR. And I think it's that immersiveness, which is what is truly promising in this space. Right from Google Glass through till something which I've been involved with this company called Vuzix, or IQT from New York, launching these smart glasses called M100 for enterprise space. And I'll show you a quick video on this one. Actually, just play that video, please.
What a final we have in store tonight. 2 unbeaten teams hitting their peak at the right time. It is going to be a great game. There seems to be a problem with the lights.
Job started.
Directions.
Walk 50 feet, then turn right.
Waiting to hear if there's a problem.
Warning, confined space. Panel located. Enter code 72. Initiate relay. Disable active circuits. Disconnect cable. Remove unit.
We've been told the problem with the lights is being fixed. And there they are. The lights are back on.
Call Phil.
Calling Phil.
Yeah, this doesn't seem quite right. me take a look. I'll take you through it. Hit the relay button.
Okay.
Then 784.
Got it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem quite right, but it'll be okay for now.
I'll put a new work order in for next week, Phil. Thanks for your help.
New work order submitted.
The atmosphere cranks up a notch. It's a beautiful night with a big game.
I think as you see there, future of work or enterprise mobility, and that's where really the application of AR is very promising again. There's the Vuzix M100 if anybody wants to have a look at that later. But yeah, it came soon after Google Glass, which was obviously a lot more consumer oriented, but I think when we talk about something with substance for a particular application, this got a lot of traction at that time. And there's of course many more iterations since then. We've actually also deployed it with NTT Docomo in Japan for real-time translation. So you've got an element there which you can put that on and actually look at a text in Japanese, and it's being translated in real time in English for you right on the thing. So a lot of applications like that which have been a lot more feasible now with higher computing power. So we'll all be wearing shades. Yeah, and augmented reality and VR. We're talking about a massive market. And VR, obviously immersive VR in education. We've already heard a lot about that earlier. Disrupting the space on personalized learning. Heads-up displays and HMDs rather, smart glasses and eyewear. There are so many different types. There is the Google Cardboard, but I think the one interesting Aussie startup I'll recommend you is called Phenomic out of the Gold Coast, because I've been also involved with helping them. They're actually, something which I would say Google Cardboard on steroids, because we're looking at a lot more sophistication than just that level of simple connectivity for a mobile phone into a dumb device. So 3D visualization, I think, is a very important aspect, and I wanted to just show you a quick video of what we at Impact Multimedia have done. One of the companies have been helping earlier on looking at AR and VR space also very much, but how do we really look at storytelling transformed? Can you play that video quickly? Example here, you can hear me, is interest rates of different banks in Australia being plotted in 3D, so you can actually immerse into the data and see, get into the sort of insights much quickly when you visualize the data, when you immerse yourself into it. There's a very quick tinkering we did with HP with some of the banks here in Australia. So some of the guys to watch out for, Meta, which is one of the interesting companies, they've just launched their version 2 of their glasses early this year, the space glasses. Magic Leap got over 1.3 billion, the largest, most funded startup ever, 1.3 billion US dollars of funding plus. So I think there's very promising. We've been hearing about them earlier also, so I won't tell you. And again, looking at new ways of silicon photonics, which they've patented many different aspects of retinal imagery, projection is how they're really going to be operating. And then, of course, the Microsoft HoloLens. And I had a very quick video of the HoloLens application, which can be played rapidly. startup here called Human AR VR, and we've just joined the Sydney Sports Incubator in Olympic Park, looking at education in this space for athletes, and using very similar type of applications as you see there on this screen there. Looking at the musculoskeleton. I'll just, in the interest of time, I'll just move on. So as you can see, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening, and in fact, all 5 senses being explored by Field Real with the Nirvana helmet, which is the one on the right, and on the left is this thing actually looking at eye tracking from FOVE, which is looking at subtle eye movements and actually being able to see exactly where you're looking at, being able to direct content straight to you based on your retinal movements. So storytelling has really been transforming itself, and I think it's an interesting move back into that mode of, coming back to the campfire mode of real-time, things, and that's where mobile holograms, as I call it, is really going to be making a mark, and folks like ARHT, augmented reality holographic technology media called Humograms and so forth are making quite a dent in the market. We had, of course, Professor Stephen Hawking at the Opera House, as you might have seen last year, as a hologram, and was quite successful with the delivery of his talk, while not being there in person, but represented by that means. So now I wanted to give you a very quick demo of something we did for a book, for children's book actually, one of the top-selling books in Australia by an author, Suzanne Gervais, who would have loved to be here. She just wrote an email from the US sending regards to you all, but we'll give you a quick demo and get my colleague Bashir to show you. This is the book actually called Elephants Have Wings. And so it's a very popular children's book, and what we did is make it come alive. So my colleague Bashir, who's heading a company called Limpid Logic, created this rapid prototype, and that's why I call it a, oops, sorry, lost my, can we switch over to the HDMI, please? So you can see there, audio coming. It's going earlier.
But the idea is that we were able to capture the author with her own voice to actually tell the story. So when they came to us, they wanted to digitize the book and replace it with an iPad experience.
He's saying the audio, wait, plug it properly again. How about we unplug it? There we go.
We can listen to it separate.
Separately.
It only plays.
Look at this.
I'll try it again. But just to give you the impression, is that she's got a beautiful voice. It's like the grandma telling you the bedtime story. And instead of digitizing the book and replacing the medium that we want children to still grow up with, we thought we would augment and tell a better story through technology. So what we've built is that the stories that you get to unlock the character out of the book, that was before Pokemon Go, which is more popular, and to kind of change the bedtime story and kind of augment it through technology. So you unlock the character by buying the first book, and you'll be able to carry him around. There's lots of examples that work best with the audio, just because the author is actually telling the story, and you go through the entire journey, and you unlock certain characters and props. And the story starts with the book and ends with the book at that time. So while they're carrying the mobile phone, waiting at the dentist.
So you can hear that.
It's very cute.
That's right.
The idea is like the new Tamagotchi, so the kid can carry the character with him when he's hungry. You can place him on the table on a real surface where you can see yourselves in the back. And mixed with digital reality, we get to manifest the character and bring him to life. And by doing so, we're complementing the book as a merchandise, and we're passing on 10 times more the information than the kid would have had by just having the book. So the idea with augmented reality, like Anuraj is saying, we're just presenting much richer experience without replacing reality, which is very important.
So it's a very emotionally driven story, I mean, with the audio and the whole multimedia experience, as you can imagine. For children to immerse into that, it's And I think that's what I call for Bashir to have done from his startup, not just a MVVP or minimum viable, validated and valuable product. It's a MLP, or most lovable product. So I like to tell a lot of the startups I mentor, saying that's what you need to create, the most lovable product. And that's the prototype which we are looking at for multiple different publications and aspects that we can consider. So you can have a look at it later on, I suppose, just in the interest of time. We'll have to just wrap up. No, that's my next thing. I'm coming to that. Wait 1 minute. Okay, wait 20 seconds, my next slide. You're stealing my thunder. Can you get to the slides again, please? Yeah. Thank you. So there we go, that's the headsets. So there's a couple of companies called NeuroSky, which is the Mindwave Mobile, which Bashir is wearing. So I'll ask him to come back here. Bashir, you need to come back here. And since we're going to give a very quick demo, did you download it on your thing? Or you have a look here. So EEG, how many of you know about EEG? Have you heard? Electroencephalograph, right? Brain waves, your alpha, beta, delta, gamma waves. And that's what there's two companies, the other one called Mindplay, which has created a lot of content and games and so forth. So we've actually been looking at ADHD, which is a company called Neurocog out of University of Wollongong. And NeuroSky has been one of the early pioneers in EEG, a single dry sensor EEG. So basically when you look at what you could measure, I mean, it's been around for a long time, something which used to cost over $40,000 at one stage to measure your brain waves is now under $100 actually. So you can buy for $99 US this very headset right now. And it's a single dry sensor and you can do very precise measurements of your brain waves. And that's what I think we'll give you a very quick demo of that. Yep. Yeah, sure.
So if this doesn't work, it's very embarrassing because.
No, it's. I think we're. Wait a minute. Wait.
Because the
brains
are not working.
The brain better work right now. There we go. Okay.
It works.
Wait. Oh.
I'm fully.
You're very relaxed, actually. Okay, so you need to just point to the screen there so everybody can. Can we toggle to the iPad to the HDMI? Yeah, please.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there you go. So just focus that a little bit. So what you see there is attention or focus and meditation or relaxation. And there's the waves as they're happening in real time right now. Well, are they? Wait a minute, I think it's a little bit stuck there. That is stuck. Wait.
I'm very focused and relaxed at the same time, which is very rare.
Right, there we go. No, there you go. Wait a minute. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to be looking at, is putting people in the zone, as we call it, right? When you got both of them. Oh yeah, I think it's
the battery as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. 1 second. I'll just restart the app also. 1 second. Where did I put it now? Brain wave.
Shouldn't show this.
Okay, wait, just turn around. There's a green light on. Oh God, it's the battery, is it? Not now. Wait. Okay, no, that's on. Right. It's connected.
It's amazing how software and hardware moved on, except battery technology is still.
There we go. No, it's working.
No,
it's working. There you can see it now. That's real time.
I'm full attention.
Just a quick visualizer.
Yep.
Keep it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So as you see there, yeah, that's the attention meter, eSense, and there's the relaxation or meditation meter, and all the waves, in real time. Which again, this is all just raw data. We can translate that and build a lot of games, and there's a lot of edutainment software which has been developed by these companies, especially Mindplay out of the UK, and yeah. So there you go. That's a quick demo. Thank you. Can we switch back to the slides? Just have the last couple of slides. Right. Anybody want to have a play with that? You can come up later and wear it, and
that was the most intimate insight into my brain, guys.
Yeah. There's quite a few interesting companies in that space too. There's a company called Emotive, which has also got interesting facial recognition and other wearable sensors, which they're looking at, started by an Aussie co-founder. So looking at what it's been used for in athletic training and flying toy helicopters even. So there's a lot of games and stuff. In fact, even Star Wars merchandise, where I happened to be with Stanley Yang, who's the CEO of NeuroSky for a few days just before coming back here last week. And I think we noticed that there's just so much happening in terms of EEG with education right now. There's so much interest there. I think that's where it's the future that needs to be shaped and not predicted. So I'd like to this is my second last slide. The world is moving very fast. There are days when a person who says it can't be done is interrupted by the person who's already doing it. And I'd like to end my final slide, as always, which I do in my presentations, by quoting the Mahatma or adapting a quote from him. True innovation only happens when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Anuraj. I love it when you start getting your toys over here to play.
There was another toy I forgot to show, actually, Neko Mimi. This was also from NeuroSky, which is very popular in Japan, as you can see. It's a robotic-controlled mind cat's ears. Sorry. Anybody want to dare put it on?
So
You're welcome.
In the interest of time, any questions that you have, we will put it to the panel. And in the panel, we have 3 members, one of which is Anuraj. And I'm delighted to invite Paul Vibro, who's the director for creative industries for Capgemini. He's an old friend of mine, and he comes with a very rich experience in media education and a couple of other things. So please give a round of applause to Paul. And for the third member, I would like to invite Ashley. Ashley, I'm just calling you because a lot of people clap for you. So therefore, please.
I was to take a photo of you.
Yes.
Then you'll be all over the Hello, Ash.
So folks, this is the concluding session of the Global Mindset 17th Conference on Emerging Trends in Learning and Working, Part 1. This is really a summary of what we have discussed today, and I really want to open it up to the floor to ask any questions under the sun. Please don't leave them alone. Give them tough questions. Come on, guys. Who wants to start? Okay, I'll start then. Paul. Okay. Where do you see the education industry heading? Do you see the same level of disruption which you've seen in media?
Yes. Is the simple answer. So it's quite interesting when Pradeep invited me along, because my past has mostly been working in the media industry, so 25 years in pay TV, in Fairfax, in Seven, and people like Foxtel. And you would think initially, what's the connection to education? But it's quite surprising how much I can see a link. So the disruption thing is really important. I think I kind of picked out 4 things which I think are very similar. So number one is when you look at what the media and entertainment industry has done in the last, and happened to in the last 2 or 3 years, it's the biggest disruption that's ever happened. I mean, I lived through the dot-com boom and bust, lived through where online came on, but that is nothing compared to what's happened now. And I think there's a couple of characteristics which are very similar. So the first one is, it's become global in nature. So media and entertainment is no longer something, say, restricted to your own country. Netflix, for example, is a company that's completely disrupted TV, and it exists around the world. I think that could happen in education. No longer is it around the universities which in their own cities command the monopoly. Now you can be educated through a university anywhere in the world. Second thing is it's more complex. So when you look at media, you look at, in the old days it was nice and simple. The business model was simple. How things were done was that you either watched TV, you listened to radio, you read a newspaper. Now, in every single area, you can do it through a multitude of ways, as you were talking about. So you can do it in a massive amount of ways. So it's very complex in order to be a consumer, and it's obviously very complex as a provider of services. So it's getting more complex. I would say education is exactly the same. Because all the things we're talking about today, it's not just about putting someone in a classroom or in a lecture room and talking to students. they have to engage with students in so many different ways. So that gives you a lot of problems because it opens up the next thing, which is it's becoming more personalised. So when we look at media, in the days gone by, we used to enjoy TV, switch on the TV, happy to watch the same programme at 8 o'clock at night. My kids now are in that generation where they don't care about that. Like everyone, they want what they want, to watch whatever they want, wherever they want, on whatever device they want. They don't care that the business models don't necessarily support that. That's what they want. So in the same way, I would say that personalised approach that we've all been talking about today is exactly the same in education. There's no difference. People are going to want to be educated and learn in work in their own way, on their own devices. So the talk about mobility, virtual reality, all those things that are exactly the same in media are going to come here. I think the other thing which is very important, there's two more. The second one, second to last one, is around the business model, which I touched on before. The business model for media has been completely disrupted, and lots of companies that were very successful have disappeared, completely gone. Kodak, Blockbuster, for example, in the entertainment world. So my kind of point around that is it's very simple to sit and say, okay, these are all nice things, but will the industry change? I would say if you look at media and you compare to where it was 5 years ago, the business models have been completely rot. So don't think, my advice would be don't look at the industry and say, okay, this is all nice, this is just additional. The models could change and they could change very fast. But I think the final thing which is really important around media, and I know you were talking about the range of different things that people interact, I still think the core of it, the creative core, if you like, is still there. So as far as TV and movies, it's around creating fantastic emotional visual storytelling. That has not changed. That's the key thing around that. For publishing, it's around fantastic, trusted journalism that creates great stories and takes you to. None of that will change. What is changing is how you use that in order to do that. But that core competent hasn't changed. And I would say in the education world, that's exactly the same as everyone was saying. The core piece around educating, being passionate around teaching students and bringing that all together, that has not changed. How you embrace the technology in order to do that better, that's the future.
Some wonderful comments, Paul. Thank you very much. Ashley, this is for you. Where do you see, or how do you see, how well is the collaboration between industry and academia in Australia?
It's developing. We've now.
Is that a diplomatic answer?
No, look, I believe positively, and I've seen an amazing change in the educational landscape in the last decade or so. Some of it is because we now have a national will strategy, still trying to work out, beyond the blueprint what that actually means. But industry and academia are now recognising that work-integrated learning is absolutely essential, that it doesn't matter how many qualifications you've got, how willing you are, you're not going to hit the ground running unless the two work together. And whether that's in the credentialing space, whether it is in capstone projects that are real-life projects that students have to do in order to be able to be work-ready, or whether or not that's through traditional internships, those types of models are becoming more and more inherent. And in fact, I'd suggest that there will be very few university programs now that don't have something of that ilk in there.
Thank you, Ashley. And how many Facebook likes would she get? Her comments.
There's a bottle of wine on it, guys.
Yes, so I have to move on. Okay, Anuraj, yes, I will stop. Anuraj, where do you see Australia in terms of innovation, especially as compared to what's happening in, say, maybe Shanghai, in Mumbai, in Tel Aviv, and in Silicon Valley?
Sure. So maybe just to recap a little bit from my journey. I just moved back to Australia 2.5 years ago after a 17-year walkabout, working across in US, in Africa, in India, parts of Asia, in Europe. And I think it's been interesting just learning from these other cultures and seeing how innovation is happening, and also working with very large corporates and industry, academia, collaboration, setting up innovation labs. And actually in India, we set up something called the Thinking Lab, or the Innovation Center, which was an independent lab for industry and academia to collaborate. And I think that's an interesting model, which could be also used here. So some of these ideas which I've actually shared with some of the folks here at the Council of City of Sydney also talking about how Sydney could be an innovation capital. I think there's so much creativity here. I'm, in fact, currently mentor at Stone and Chalk and Murudi and a few of these incubators. But I've noticed that a lot of startups here are missing the key insights and deeper knowledge of emerging markets. So the pain points and all, they're a little bit detached from that. And I think that's where the innovation gap is between these markets. So it's really about how do you bridge that gap rightfully by making them a lot more aware, doing a lot more immersive tours, but at the same time building these collaborative labs, which I think is very critical.
I was going to say actually, just picking up on that point, we've started Instigator, it's about 5 or 6 labs around the world now, including San Francisco, where we're actually working with clients because things have changed, whereas before, you know, as companies like ourselves would go and speak to clients and you do the piece of work and that was it. It was very much that kind of relationship. Where now it's around trying to pull together the skills that you both bring to the party. And so these kind of co-innovation labs have just started where the idea is that if you've got a certain thing you want to prototype or you want to pull out of the system to innovate, you get a small team from within the company plus a small team of the technology team, put them together in a co-located site, which is off-site from the business in a Capgemini place, and together prototype. So I think that sort of thing seems to be really starting to take off. And that
totally. I'll give you one example. In fact, Mondelez did a 3-month program with the food makers, obviously owning Kraft and so forth, with the hub, the pollinizer here. And they use startups to really inject themselves into a big, large corporate. And think like, and really, large corporates are already having entrepreneurs being champions of innovation. So I think that's where the wake up is happening, and large corporates are waking up to that small startup thinking very rapidly. But what's missing is, and I think what I've seen is CSIRO, Data 61, obviously the R&D know-how and capital of Australia is also very rapidly aligning itself now with that industry and academia, R&D sort of coming together to something a lot more Silicon Valley type thinking, and where the collaboration has to be very strong, very immense. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, question for all of you. What is the market cap of Uber? Yeah. A wine bottle?
30 billion.
Who said 30?
I said.
50%.
60 days.
Jesus.
Oh, it was 30 a few months ago.
So actually, it is 65 at the moment.
It's gone up.
So
Good.
please can I get a bottle of wine, please, for Rene. Okay, now in summary, one last point that you would like to make, each of you, what do you see as the key emerging trend?
Ask them questions. Any questions they have to ask?
They are keeping quiet.
I thought there were questions there. Let's interactive. Sorry, yeah.
So I guess my question is about ethical considerations around continual innovation in terms of technology, right? So can we really produce $7 tablets that are ethically produced? And do innovators in terms of technology have a social responsibility for the future of humanity, I guess, in terms of state surveillance and things being misused and the constant war that the world is engaging in? Do you feel I know it's market driven, so maybe it's not really a consideration, but is this something that people think about?
It's a fantastic
can you please introduce yourself?
My name's Alexia. I'm from Western Sydney University.
Yes, please. Now.
In the Masters of Professional Practice, one of the compulsory subjects that you have to do is ethics. So from an academic perspective, ethics I think is now throughout the whole of education. But in terms of innovation and those pricings, etc., I'm going to pass over to you guys.
I'll say one thing about ethics, and I can say this from company, we take ethics very, very strongly, and we've won awards as being one of the most ethical companies in the world. So ethics is obviously at the heart and very important in the way that you produce and the way you innovate, basically. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's critical. Ethical behavior and activity is utmost important and the foundation. But really, what technology is enabling through new innovation is about bringing more empathy And I think that's where it's really about, in fact, I think of another startup that I've been involved with called Stand in My Shoes, where we've been creating a film actually to start with, but also looking at other aspects around it on global empathy. And this is really talking about how people need to stand in other people's shoes and actually understand and really get themselves immersed into what it's like being there. And I think VR, we've seen some examples today, touching on that on the surface. But yeah, I think so. It's a very interesting point there, because there is a clutter of data and information. It's about how do people immerse themselves rightly and use technology in the right manner. There's got to be bodies, there's got to be control to a level, and certainly for children and for other aspects, there needs to be regulation, rightfully so.
Yes, please.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
See, universally, when something is being so disruptive in terms of pricing, the first question comes in our mind whether ethics has been violated or not. However, there are enough examples that we know from the emerging countries that this has been broken without any violation of ethics. One of the examples is the mission to the Mars. We all know the mission to the Mars first time was being successful by the Indian Space Research Organization with 1/10 the cost and first attempt being successful. No one talks about the ethics violation because it's so scientific, so precision. The first car, which was a $2,000 car ever produced, was done by Tata Motors, the Tata Nano, and there was no ethics violation because Tatas are known to be absolutely ethical. So I think it's a myth that disruption of such an extent in pricing will always be at the compromise of ethics. I think that myth has to be broken at some point of time with such examples.
Very good point.
Yep.
Any other question from the audience? Yes, please. Please introduce yourself.
So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Tito from Department of Education of the Philippines. After all the sharing here and all the presentations, I really appreciate very much the impact to us as educator. After all those trends that you have presented, I am just curious of what specific threat you have identified to environment after all these emerging trends in technology and work, learning, and so on and so forth. Because it's still fresh in our mind that Philippines was hit by the strongest typhoon in the history of the world, Typhoon Haiyan. So any single environmental threat that's recognized by all these emerging trends in technology, that's considered as contribution of all this technology to the environment.
Good point. Anybody, any other point or any other question anybody has? Yes, please, Bashir. You are only entitled to, wear headsets. You can't ask questions.
I'm asking now, Anurag.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Go for it.
Go on.
No, it's just a question for how do you think the educational system is going to hold when there are still teaching jobs that are threatened in the next 5 to 10 years, using curriculums that's been put at least 30 years ago, and when the next move that the educational system thinks is innovating is that by going online, where they're producing videos that are redundant 3 months later. So there's a content problem because there's a knowledge problem. The way it's been sent, the form we consume knowledge is different. And it looks like we need to look at the whole process from the beginning to the end and rethink why we're teaching and for what purpose. From what you've commented, it looks like all the knowledge now is turning into training, which is more practical to the job, because most people have access in real time to information that you just find you can do anything you want today, even if you're not qualified. That it's more important to actually do training on the job, at the task. There are jobs being made redundant while people are still trying to invest time in it for studying 6 to 10 years when there's a robot in 5 years that's going to do the surgery. How do you think the system, what's the next step for that system?
Well, that's the big area. I think you should have been here for the rest of the whole day. Even I came in half of the day, so it was addressed.
The 3rd November conference.
Another big plug there. So I think you're right. There's just so much content which is being rapidly updated and developed, and it's very hard to catch up and keep up to date. And I think that's where it's really how the education system is transforming, and really this new paradigm with technology enabling it to be up to date, right? Hopefully to the level that it becomes the borders between training and education, as per the foundational layer, have fused to a level that it's really got to become a lot more interactive and a lot more up to date with current information. And that's where the industry academia link is so much more critical. To know what the realities of today are, what the visions are of the organizations developing roadmaps for new products and ideas, the startup thinking, and this whole aspect of what R&D from a deeper sense is doing with CSIRO and the likes are working on. But I think, yeah, it's definitely a very big area which is being addressed, and I think that's where AI, and we're seeing this aspect of content becoming more pervasive in that regard.
Great.
You can probably add more.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a question. Uber has a competitor in China. Who is that competitor? And what happened? Something happened last week. So what happened last week between Uber and Didi in China? Who said that? Bottle of wine, please.
I heard it from here. That was definitely.
In this case, it's like buy one, get one free kind of a stuff. And for everybody's information, Didi was 10 times the size of Uber. So that's the kind of,
Well, and Apple invested $2 billion into them just, a month and a half ago, if you've seen that. I happened to be in town that time in Beijing when Tim Cook was there.
So any other questions? Yes, Sharon.
Just I guess a comment to what we've been looking at today is the whole education experience has been augmented by technology. The other flip side of that is students who have their abilities that are being supplemented and augmented by technologies, and sort of almost like a cyboric, with cyborg effect, because people are going to be using technologies to make up for their deficits and abilities. And this is going to be a real challenge as well. The other comment I just wanted to say, and I'm sure from the examples you've shown, a lot of this development, and this is my hobby horse, comes from disability. It's because disability has caused the need that has stirred innovation, and then it serves that person and it serves everyone else. So I really encourage everyone just to open up your hearts to students with disabilities when you're designing your work, because it will improve things for everyone, and it is the salt or the sand in the shell that's creating the pearl at the moment.
And just to add on to, every time I meet Sharon, I'm reminded of the fact that when you have a class of people with disabilities, it's not a question of just social responsibility. It is there, but it's not that, because all figures show that people with disabilities actually outperform normal students. So now coming back, any other questions? If that be the case, then first of all, let me hand over. Should I hand over 2 or 3 wine bottles now? Can I?
Oh, I need my first bottle.
I'll
do it. You haven't had one either. Yeah, okay.
So, folks, it's been a tremendous pleasure to have all of you. Thank you so much for taking out the time and coming to spend the day with us. I hope you enjoyed the session as much as I enjoyed having all of you and having these guys talking about, and of course she made a very good point. Here we are, all of us sitting together, talking about how to enhance the learning experience and learning outcomes. But yes, student is the key focus area. End of the day. So actually, just because you've got a large number of likes, on Facebook, so therefore,
thank you very much.
I will give you one more.
I think I'm going to find someone in the audience to share. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, on behalf of Ashley. Yeah,
Actually, yes, that's absolutely
yes. Most questions are for active participation. And I would be absolutely. And once again, a big thank you to our overseas visitors from Philippines and from Singapore. A round of applause for them, as well as to all of you. And I look forward to building up a community of people who are focused on how we can collectively bring about a change leveraging digitization and globalization. Thank you once again. Have a lovely evening.